Hello, hi, my name is Nobu Kumalo, and welcome to Seasons, a series where I sit down with some of the incredible people I've had the privilege of rubbing shoulders with. And man, we have a chat about some of the seasons we've been through or are currently going through in the hopes that you'll feel seen, that you'll relate, and that you will know you are not alone. Today, I have someone who I can say, I watched her grow, and I feel so grown today. I have someone who
Hey.
I think I first rubbed shoulders with her maybe, I don't know, over 10 years, certainly over 10 years ago. And she was
Mhm.
like this young, vibrant person. In the context I met her in, she was a young, vibrant preacher. But over the years, I have seen her grow and evolve into this stylish, feisty young woman. And now she's even a business owner. We'll get into that later. But when you look at her from the outside, it's easy to think like she's put together and has all things aligned and that, life just like happens smoothly for her. But as we tend to know, like there's a lot that happens behind the scenes that we don't get to see unless people let us into it. So we're going to talk about, her recent loss of her mom rather suddenly. For context, she's also like an only child raised by a single mom. So whereas loss is always loss, and we all feel it deeply. I think it's another thing when you lose almost the only family you have. But before we get into that, hi Sam, welcome.
Hi, Naru. Hi, Mrs. K. Thank you for having me today.
How are you doing? How are you doing?
I'm good. And
You're
how
good.
are you?
I'm all right. Thank you for asking. Who would ever ask me how I'm doing? You're the first. Thank you for asking.
I'm very
before
good.
we before we jump into it, I'm going to ask you two or so icebreakers.
Okay.
You seem like a very stylish young lady. I don't want the price tag, but what is the most expensive item of clothing or shoe or bag that you have in your closet? Don't tell us the price,
Um,
but what is the most expensive item you have in your closet?
okay. I have two, I think, but the most expensive should be a bag
Mm-hmm.
and a coat that I got,
Okay.
a winter coat. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
hmm
And then what is your perfect idea of like a girl's day out when you're like, I want to chill with my girls and just blow our
hmm
money? What does that look like?
In terms of dressing or
No, no, no.
just
In terms of
everything.
like going out with your girls, like what are you doing? Are you doing your nails? And are you out eating? What are you doing with your girls?
I like nice places. I like especially sleeping places. So definitely it'll be going out at a nice place,
Yeah,
eating nice food, and
yeah.
maybe we can take nice pictures. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely that would be your
All
idea
right.
of going out.
Okay, sounds good. Are you much of a reader?
Yes, I do read sometimes, though lately I don't have the time, but I do
Okay,
read. I
so I
like.
was going to ask you what you're reading now, but then that flies out the window if you're not reading currently.
No, but I am. I am
Okay,
right
what are you
now.
reading?
I just started reading The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari.
I've
Um,
not read it, but I know it's an amazing book.
okay, yes, I'm just like I just started reading it.
Uh-huh.
Um,
How
yeah.
are you finding it though?
I'm still in the first pages. I've read Robin Sharma's books before, notably The 5 a.m. Club, that blew me away. I happened
Mm-hmm.
to have read it the wrong time because I read it during COVID. So there was no way I would be waking up at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
in lockdown. But I found it to be a very profound book with profound lessons. So
Yeah.
let's see how this one goes.
All right,
Can't
cool.
wait.
Cool, cool. All right, let's get into our conversation. So I did say earlier that I met you when you were, much, much younger. I think you're probably maybe in your teens or a bit earlier. And I remember you being, tied to your mom's hip. Can you tell us about like your childhood, how it was growing up as far as you can remember? Because some people are like, my childhood was a blur. But when you think of your childhood, just paint us a picture of what that looked like.
Okay, my childhood was full of love. I think what I really remember the most was celebrating my birthdays because I would look forward to it. And my mom made a big deal out of my birthdays. The
Mm-hmm.
whole neighborhood knew that Samantha's birthday would celebrate and would bring in all kids and have this. It's unfortunate I lost all the pictures, but
Uh-huh.
yeah, and most of the time my mom would be working. So part of it I spent with my aunt. Sadly, she passed away at my aunt's place. So she used to stay at a police camp. So I would go there when my mom is at work before I started school. So I would make friends. I made friends from the police camp. That's where I then learned how to speak Shona also. That's what my mom says. So I think I was always make new friends, but it was really lovely. And I loved playing with dolls a lot. So I would even sew my doll's clothes and get extra pairs of shoes. Like my dolls always had everything.
Yeah.
And I used to play with my cousin a lot as I grew up. And I started going to school. My mom would not allow me to go for sleepovers at friends' place. She believed that you have your cousin. Who else do you need? So I used to play with my cousin a lot. So I never really felt that I'm the only child growing up, actually, because I was always surrounded by other people my age so basically that's what I can say.
Was she strict? Would you call her a strict mom?
No, she was not strict, but she had set boundaries that she just wanted me to be within the boundaries, like especially when it comes to strangers and extra people, that she was not really big on me going to people's houses, like classmates. And I would be so sad because my classmates would be like, this Friday, where are we going to? And then people plan their sleepovers and I'm just like, I want to go for a sleepover as well. Which is like, you want to quit this place. Which sleepover do you want? So yeah, that's how she was. And obviously I had curfew, had to be home by 6. But nah, she was okay. She was quite the cool mom.
So you speak a lot about your mom. Can you tell me about your relationship with your dad, if you had any relationship with him? I'm getting from it that you just grew up with your mom and your aunt, like you said. But was your dad ever in the picture? How was that relationship like?
Okay, my biological dad passed away when I was months old. So he's a figure I never got to know really, like at a personal level. But I have someone who's played a father figure role in my life. So he's been present in that. I do have someone I can relate to and say, oh, this is my dad. And then life goes on like that. But obviously it's very different. So that's what I can say about that father figure role in my life.
And you mentioned earlier that you also spent time with your aunt at a police camp. Apart from your aunt, who are the other people that formed the village that your mom needed to bring you up? If you can think of anyone else who you're like, you know what, if my mom wasn't around, my aunt wasn't around, so and so was around. And I think the time in which we grew up, it wasn't just your aunts around just to watch you or babysit you. At least when I was a kid, it was whoever is part of the village can discipline you as well. And when your mom comes to pick you up, they'll actually tell you that, yeah, she was being naughty and I gave her a hiding and that was fine. Now I know people would cause a flipping, and yeah, call the cops on you if you put a hand on their child. But I'm curious to know what the other village that raised you was like.
All right. So for this particular aunt, the one I referred to, it was like my earlier years, probably from 1 to 3, 4 years.
Yeah.
And then as I grew up, my mom also was becoming more stable. So she then had to bring in her sisters to I'll take care of you. And we had this cute little family. It was me, her younger sister, and she'd bring an extended family, like maybe cousins, and they would come, stay with her for a while, try to find their footing in the city, and they would leave. But my mother was very big on the extra family that she would make, like her friends. So her friends were like family to me. So I would always refer to them as aunt something, aunt this, aunt that. And that's how I've also grown to be like most of my friends have become family. And so that community that she built, she was a very social person. She loved people and she was loved by people as well. So it was easier for her to have this community that everyone, because you naturally love a person, you'd also love their offspring, like, oh, that's Akile's daughter. Hi, how are you? So they became family, that became the village, and her cousins were just around the city. So yeah, that was the village that I grew up in.
Amazing. Okay, cool. So you've mentioned how your mom was like strict and you had boundaries and curfews and no sleepovers. But I'm sure like as you grew up, like your relationship evolved. How
Mhm.
how did it evolve from, when you're a child to your teens and now you're in high school, you're probably also getting an attitude and you're kind of starting to think, "Ah, I can make decisions for myself," into the young lady that you now are. I'm curious to know because I like I said earlier, to me, you guys look like you're like this, right? But I'm curious to know from your perspective how you saw your relationship evolve over the years.
Okay, so I moved from being this, spoiled baby. She used to spoil me a lot, and then I started growing older, and now you want to say no, and she's like, "How are you saying no?" And she really did give birth to a mini version of herself, so that also did not make things any easier because she was strong-headed, and I
And
was
yeah, very
also
right.
strong-headed,
I will speak
right?
about like especially your fashion sense. I could see that those two
Uh-huh.
before they walk out the house, they probably check each other with right, sharp, everything. Pick and span.
Mhm.
Okay, so Miss Yobangenda. That's kind of what
That's
I
that's how
get.
it's going again.
Sorry for disturbing you. Go ahead.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
So obviously we also had that, that teen mom stage where it's not given, where
Yeah.
you're growing up and she's like, you cannot be growing up in my house, under my roof. You need to find your own place. But we had that, just like I think everyone goes through that season. So it was annoying to say the least, because you're like, do you really love me? Because you're coming from, oh, this person loves me so much too. Does she really love me?
Yeah.
But then in hindsight, you could see that she was just trying to groom me to be the person that I am. And everything that she'd say, I'd be like, no, I don't like this. And she'd be like, you cannot do that. And
Yeah.
obviously, our parents are also not always 100% right. And I think, like, I watched in your previous video with your sister where you mentioned that first time parents, it was also her first time to be having a 16-year-old daughter. So she also doesn't know how to handle things. But we managed to sell through that, and we became the best of friends, really.
When you think of her and the lady you are now, I did mention it earlier that in terms of like your style and your dress code, I could see that you guys, you make sure you keep each other on lock. But what do you see in yourself that you're like that is my mom right there? When you think of you, whether it's your personality or your style or the way you think or your business mindedness, that thing you're like that is my mom.
I think I see parts of herself in almost everything that I do. Like every time, I'm always like, I know this from somewhere. Someone's been doing it before me, you know. I think just because we spent a lot of time together, and she was that one person that I had in my little circle, I really adopted a lot of her mannerisms, a lot of how she processes things, how she deals with people. I think our biggest difference was that she was very social. She was like,
Yeah.
"Umuntu wabantu," and I don't think I'm that. I think I keep to myself a bit. You would say, "Mama wayengamduduzela abantu." She would talk to everyone, even in
Everyone.
the streets, right? They actually knew her and they liked her, and she would talk. But
Yeah.
I don't think I'm that person. That's the biggest difference. But in terms of how I operate, generally how I process things, I see that I got it from her.
Yeah.
Obviously things like dressing, I actually, you're saying it, but it's not something that you think, oh, I got it from her. But everyone will be like, your mom is always smart, from when I was in primary school. And obviously I think because that has always been the norm to me. So some things you don't really see because for you that's the normal part. And you're just like, this is how you do life. How she was so particular about being in a clean environment. She was very smart. She gave me grief whenever she could. she was, would say, would be in layman's terms, would say she had OCD,
Yeah.
She was very hardworking. She was very independent. So I think I got that from her also. He also was very religious or spiritual. I don't know the perfect term to use.
Yeah.
And she was very welcoming to people. She was a people's person, like I always say. I really admire about her because I failed terribly at that. Yeah, basically those traits. And I think I see them magnified in the little things that I do. And even, I know we're going to get into this. I always wonder how they ended up selling bags, but my
Exactly.
mom had a bag for everything. She had a bag for everything. And I think it's something that's like in my subconscious head where I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I could sell bags because I grew up seeing someone who had bags for every outfit. So
Yeah.
I think that's how it started.
Let's actually get into it, and I totally relate. I think it's only now like later where I'm now like in charge of buying myself stuff and dressing myself. Where I'm like, this is my mom. Like for anyone who knows my mom is also always like stylish, and for her that generation, she's gonna have like a hat that matches the outfit and the shoe, and then the bag that coordinates. So I see it in myself right now. My husband and I will talk about how he's like, you have so many shoes. I'm like, yeah, I have like you
I
don't
get it
just.
from you.
It's not a one size fits all. It's not a one thing fits all. It has to. There's a difference between a closed shoe and an open shoe, and then there's a difference between colors. Like, and even with black is not all black, And now that I think now that I think about it, I'm like, I could only end up this way because that's all I used to consume. I used to watch how she was so coordinated. But you speak about how you've ended up selling bags, and I think this ties together with what you were saying about like being hardworking and independent. What sparked the idea to start this brand? For context, she is the proud owner of a brand called SN Lux. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Yes,
And
yes,
they're based in Harare. You're going to give us the address because I do not know it off the top of my head. But talk me through that business. And I've seen how it's grown, but maybe let's not talk about its growth to its present stage now. We can do that later. But I'm just curious, like what in your head was like, kunama-apotiki amaningi around, it's fine, but I'm going to create my space in this industry.
All right, we're gonna go way back. So with me, it was not just about the selling part. So the base of it all was that I've always wanted to make a name for myself. And I think this stems from everything that has to do with my childhood and growing up in the church as well.
Yeah.
And being born of a single mother. Like we know how society and the church just really does not regard highly single parents.
Yeah.
So my growing up, it's actually something that I realized later, when you're now sitting down to say, but how and where did this come from? You're in church, you're this excelling child, you're doing so well, and everyone is so bent on trying to pin you down to a certain family to say, oh, is this Elder Ngwena's child? And I'm like, I'm not Elder Ngwena's child. Is this Pastor Ngwena's child? I'm not that. So now you're this standalone child who seems to be coming from nowhere. You know how it is in the church. So you're not associated with some known family. You're basically a nobody. Just to say like it's in layman's sense. So that I think it affected me. Like, no, but it shouldn't be like that. I want to have a name for myself, I want to build a brand name. I want my kids to get to a place and be like, I am so and so's child. And people are like, okay, then they make way for you type of thing. Not that my mother didn't do that for me. She did, but at a smaller
as far
scale.
As she could, as far as she could.
There were places I could just get in and be like, I'm so and so child. But in the bigger picture, in places where it mattered the most, especially for me, like church and everything, you could just tell that you can easily be sidelined, or your achievements or your capabilities can easily be talked down on because you're not someone's child who's known and big, you're not a pastor's child, because people would be wanting so bad for you to be associated with someone big, someone to be like, yeah, that's what the church builds, abantwana pastor, they're like this, or all this, that longing, and you could see, and you just, but I'm just me, and it's okay if I'm like that, I can't change it. But yeah, it was that. And even going to an Adventist school, you go to an Adventist school, you meet people coming from notable SDA families, running third, fourth generations back. And you're just you. And you're like, where are you from? Whose child are you? So I was like, no. I need to build my own name. I need
Yeah.
to make way for generations to come after me. And I think that's the emotional part of it. Then the off the head, I feel like I'm an energetic person.
Okay.
I'm quite energetic. So the chat was, okay, I'm working, but I knock off, get home and do what? Do nothing. I like nice things as well. So I was like, I need to be doing something. So I was like, well, this might be an exciting challenge. Let's build something. So with that, building a name for myself, and I was like, let me just see where to start, try to do something. And then SN was born, basically. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Quite interesting. I had actually never thought about the angle you brought up, about the church, because I myself being a pastor's child, I'm on the other side of the coin where I'm like, I wish I could be invisible. Like I wish not every single thing that I do or say is like blown out of proportion because you're so and so child. I wish I could just come to church and be a church member and enjoy and amen and go home without the fuss, right? So it's quite interesting to see the other side where like I matter too. I don't have to be like someone's notable someone's child, right? I have my own journey with God, and I'm doing, what God has purposed for me, and that should be enough without wanting to like add a tag of being so and so's child or associating me with someone big. I am big in myself because God has done something, in me and through my mom, who some would look at and think, who is she? But God has purposed it this way. And maybe let's speak a little bit also about your introduction to the church. I'm not sure about your history in the church. Were you guys always Adventist? How did that work out? And how did your mom's relationship, not just with the church but with God, shape the relationship that you now have with God and the church?
All right. So yes, my mom was always Adventist from her upbringing, but she didn't grow up in Blair. So she grew up in Midlands, and then when she moved to Blair, she was looking for greener pastures, and she started working. But when she started working, she also started working on a Sabbath. But she worked on a Sabbath. She worked on Sabbath for a very long time. But because she had a relationship with God, she then would go to church on Sunday. So she used to attend this church. I think it was called Church of Christ. And she used to like singing. So she would be in the choirs. And this was just to compensate for her not being able to go to church on a Saturday. So there was a point in my life where I was a child, would go to Church of Christ. But that was like for a very short while. And then when I grew up, there was a time we tried out Makokoba SDA Church and City Church simultaneously, and then until we really settled at North End Church, that was like back in 2005, 6. So that's where like I really then found myself in the church. So as far as I could remember, we went to church. Whatever church it was, we did go to church. So for me, I grew up knowing that church is very important. Secondly, my mom did not force church. She did not shove it down my throat. I remember there was a time I was fascinated, okay, let me not mention names, by some pastor was performing miracles. So he would lower his handkerchief and the whole auditorium would fall. I was like, wow, what a man of God. I was like in grade 2 or grade 3. So I told my mom, so I think I saw some flyer on the newspaper which was saying he's going to be performing, and I was like, and it was written live. So I thought he was going to be there in person. I was a child, I didn't know. I was like, hey, I want to go and see this person. I like him. I watch his sermons. She was like, okay, cool. We dressed up on a Sunday. I'd already started going to church. We had already started going to church like on a Sabbath. We dressed up, we bathed on a Sunday. We went, it was down in the deeps of wherever, I do not know, but she took me there. We got there and we're in this big room and there's people. And people are watching a person from a TV. This is like 2005, 2006. This is how like things were not so normal. I'm like, no, this is not cutting it. I'm like, this is not working. And then I noticed, this is a scam. No one is falling here. Why aren't people receiving miracles or whatever? So I like the part that she never shoved church down my throat. She allowed me to explore whatever I wanted to explore. And for me, that was the defining moment. I made my choice. I was like, no, I'm an Adventist. And I wanted to get piercings when I was in grade 1 because my classmates had piercings. So she was like, okay, cool. We went. I got my piercings. I was in grade 1. And then when I got to grade 3, I could see that the environment that I'm in, church, because I was like, okay, at school, my classmates have piercings. At church, they do not have piercings. What is it? And I would ask on my own and I would try and find the truth. And then in grade 3, I was like, no, I'm not going to put on earrings. And that's a discovery I made on my own.
On your own.
And that she allowed me to make. So she was like, you don't want? I was like, yes, I don't want anymore. She was like, cool, it's fine. So she never... she never forced me to do things out of her own beliefs, to say, we don't do this, so you don't do that as well. She would allow me, I think maybe because also they were not harmful things. I mean, it's yes. So she would allow me to explore. And then when I would be like, and then she'd be like, it's okay, it's fine. I knew you'd get here. I'm happy we are here. Let's keep it going. So that's the relationship that we have with church. And she was very spiritual. She liked prayer. I really remember the first time she taught me how to pray, like every day before bed. I was about to go and sleep and she called me. She was like, come. And like, I went into her bedroom and she was like, every day before you sleep, you kneel down and pray. And so we knelt down together and she prayed. And yeah, that's just been how everything was. I just learned that prayer is very essential. Choosing God is essential on your own, not because someone else has
told this is how we do it.
Yeah. So that's that we had.
That's so amazing. I think it's really kudos that even when you were young, when she had that much authority over you to say, no, you're not getting piercings, no, you're not doing this, no, you're not doing this. It's like, I'll allow you. And like you say, it's not harmful things. I'll allow you. And I'm sure in the background, between her and God, she was, praying for you and pleading that God like leads you to the path. And also trusting that God is working in you, even when, she can't be around to like force your hand. So that's quite an interesting dynamic, because I grew up in a dynamic where we just knew, like, we do this in this house, we do this, and we don't do that, we do that. And then you just grow up and follow it. So it's quite interesting to hear someone who's like, she was sure about her beliefs and what, is right in quotes, but she allowed you to explore and come to that, conviction yourself. That's actually such a beautiful thing. 2 years ago, your life changed almost overnight. And that's when you lost your mom. I say almost overnight, but that is from the outside looking in, because I do not have any of the details. So maybe you saw it coming, I don't know. But I think for the rest of us, it was a shock. We're like, this person was here today and gone the next. You lost your mom suddenly 2 years ago. Can you tell me about the days leading up to it? I know, well, depending on whether it was also sudden for you, you might not have paid as close attention to the days leading up. It's different when someone is chronically ill, right? And the doctors have said this person has 6 months. You kind of make every day count. And sometimes maybe you film or you document or something, right? So it's completely okay if you don't have a recollection really of the days that led up to her passing away. But as far as you can remember, what was life like those few days before she passed? What space were you guys in your relationship?
Okay, we were in the space that was just heralding, we're finally making it, I had just moved jobs and I was finishing my postgrad exam. I was doing project management and I had just got a company car. She was so happy. She was coming the following weekend. It was, oh, we're making it. All these years. We're finally, getting somewhere. So that was like the state of things. So she was coming the following weekend. She was coming to see me. The Saturday before the Sunday, she passed away on a Sunday. It was the 3rd of July. And it was also very close to my birthday. So it was, the hype, because it's always been there. It's like, oh, your birthday, things are finally making sense. They're starting to make sense. So I think I was on my way to a Fun Faith concert. For some reason, I almost had an accident. I didn't even tell her this because she was still so particular, but please do not drive at night. Please do not drive at night. So I didn't tell her that I'm going to a concert. I passed through my aunt's place, my her older sister's place. So she was like, you should put up there. I do not want you to drive at night. Then I was just like, oh, okay, it's fine. But then I just snuck out and I went for the concert. So I almost had an accident, but I was just like, okay, whatever. Got into the concert finished. She called me during the concert, but it was so loud. And I remember I didn't want to tell her that I was at a concert. I was like, I will call you, The concert finished, I left, I went home. So when I woke up in the morning, there was a message from her. She was saying, you said you would call me yesterday. I was like, oh, yes. And then I called her and then we spoke. And then she wanted me to do something, but I was like, don't really want to do it, Tablet with a back and forth. And she was like, anyways, I'm coming next weekend, and that was it. It was a normal conversation.
Yeah.
It was a normal conversation of people who are going to speak again tomorrow, next week, next month. And that was it. And it being a Sunday, like there are cleaning days, and you just get the hang of things. Later on, around 7-ish, I get a call from a neighbor. And I saw that call. I was like, I don't know, something in me was like,
Because when if it's someone who never calls, like your neighbor never really calls.
It is not giving, but I was just like, let me answer. And then I answered. And she's like, your mom just collapsed. I just took a deep breath. I am 439 kilometers away and I'm an only child. All I could do was take pictures of medical aid IDs to be like, please try and get her an ambulance. I knelt down and I was just like, God, please not now. That's the only thing that I said. And 10 minutes later, I get another call and there are people crying in the background. I was like, wow. And that's how it happened, And I was just like so overwhelmed. I wished I could turn back the hand of time. I wished I were in Flower. And because you're not there, you're thinking maybe they didn't do enough. Maybe they, I don't know. We also had a neighbor who was a nurse who was staying at the flat. So it was apparently she did try to perform some emergency stuff, some trying to, that didn't work. By the time the ambulance got there, she was gone. Imagine 10 minutes apart, everything just changes. And all you hear is people crying in the background. And you're nowhere close. You're not even 10 minutes away, not even 15, a good 6 hours away. And that's how it happened.
You say when you're away and all you have is pieces of information that you're being given, and the feelings of, did they do enough? Did they try hard? If I was there, I would have fought heaven and earth. And you hear that by the time the ambulance came, she was gone. Did anyone ever explain to you, autopsy or anything, like what happened, what could have been done to save her? Not that it I don't know if it matters at that point because she's gone, but maybe for closure it matters. But did anyone ever explain to you what actually happened?
So mom was asthmatic. So she went outside in the balcony to get some air, and she asked one of the neighbors to pass her a glass of water because she was running out of breath. So when she went back into her house to get the glass of water to bring back to her, as soon as she got there, she just collapsed, holding her inhaler. So that's how it happened.
It was an attack. It was an asthma attack.
I don't think it was an asthma attack. She was okay. She wasn't panting heavily by the time she asked for water. She ran out of breath, mysteriously ran out of breath. So as a person who's asthmatic, you're probably thinking, oh, maybe it's asthma. So let me just use my inhaler to try and save myself. I wish I knew what was going on in her head at that point in time. You know, I've read so many articles about how people say the brain doesn't die instantly. Maybe it's like after 20 seconds. And sometimes I feel like she gave up. I feel like she could have fought. I feel like, I feel like she could have fought. But I guess when the time is like there, you can't do anything about it. So,
How are you
yeah.
working through those feelings? Because I sense that these are not just feelings you had back in the day. Maybe you don't think about it as often as you did like 2 days after. But you probably still sometimes think, man, if you could see me now, why didn't you fight harder to be here now for this? How are you working through those feelings?
So she always had this thing. She would say that the day I go, the day I die, I don't want you to get burden on anyone. So there was a time when she had a very terrible asthma attack, but I was like in form 4, I think. And so she says, even her sisters were outside the room crying, thinking that she was gone. And she says she made a prayer to God, and she was like, God, my child is still young. She doesn't even have it all over right now. If I leave her right now, it's not going to make sense, you know? It's not going to work. So keep me. So I feel like, these are just then afterthoughts for me to be like, probably when she was there, she was like, okay, she's somewhere now. If I go now, I know she will not struggle. So that's why I feel like she didn't fight. Like she should have. Maybe that's selfish of me to say, but you know, you just never know what happens. Things just happen, and with death, it's very unexplainable. There's just so many things behind everything, and not disregarding our culture as well and what goes on behind the scenes. There's all of that, but you can't really have the know how, like, the everything 100% information. All you can do is deal with the emotions. Dealing with the emotions is going through them. Really, there's no better way to deal with them than going through them. Grief it is a monster. Like, it is a monster. It doesn't go away, really. There are times where you think, oh, better now, you know. Then it takes one little thing and you're like,
you fall
we're
apart.
not going anywhere. Yeah. But time doesn't necessarily heal. It just helps you embrace your reality, because each and every day is a reminder. Like, it's a constant reminder to be like, no, she's gone. You are here. You're alone. You go to church. You see people with their mothers, very old ones, very, and you're like, if only I had the blessing of having my mother around, but you just get to deal with it, and you're like, it was very painful, because there's something that I'd always prayed about. It like, God, I was very intentional about it, like the prayer. It's not like some prayer. I was very intentional about it, to say, please keep my mother so that she sees me graduate, get married. I want her to see her grandkids. I was very intentional about that prayer from when I was very young, because I realized family dynamics and how they work from a very young age. I think I was quite smart. I'll just read the room, see how things. I'm like, okay, see, I come from such and such a family. I would want this in my future. Keep my mother. I wanted to see her grandkids. Yeah. So when that happened, I was like,
very intentional
prayers of years. Like, I've been praying about this for years. So why now? Why did you allow it to happen? So
I that prayer, I've said this probably, I don't know in how many episodes now. I'm like, funny thing about prayer, and I've not cracked the code, because each time I'm like, God, you tell us to ask and to be given, to seek, find, knock, door open. Like, you tell us to be specific. You say, try me and see. The Bible is full of so many verses that make it sound like whatever we ask in God's name, He is listening and He will do as, and as a Christian, you accept obviously that what you ask for and God's will might not be aligned, but sometimes you're like, man, what is the point? Because clearly you have a plan, right? And that plan is going to happen whether I plead or beg with you not to make it happen that way, you know. And yet still within those feelings of feeling like, but God, you let me down here. God is also kind of the only person that you can actually turn to. So it's an interesting dynamic because you're mad, you're angry, you don't understand, but there's actually no one else who can like handle your pain as he can. And I think that's it's a very difficult position to be in, and I don't know if anyone has cracked the code or has arrived at that place of knowing how to accept God's will even when it looks nothing like what you've pleaded for. And I want to say I think it's easier when you can objectively sit back and be like, yeah, but that thing I was asking of God wasn't such a good thing, right? Where you can be like, there's no way God would have blessed this thing because like I can see that it's, you know. But then you're like, what was so wrong about praying for my mother to see her sweat and tears come into something big, right? You're like, this was a good, genuine prayer. That wasn't just about me, but about her and like validating the work that she's done in raising me, you know. But I guess these are some of those things that I don't know we'll understand later, I hope. To take you back a little bit, during that time when she has just passed away, there's a lot that I'm sure needs to happen now. There's funeral arrangements and there's, you know, culture, there's people who gather that are supposed to be fed and you being an only child, yes, I would like to know when you think about, you know, your darkest hour, those people that you're like, those people held me down. Those people got me through that darkest time. When they say the importance of community, I saw community show up in. And that weight being, I don't know if the weight was shared with other people, if at all, or you can also tell us about, you know, the weight that you felt on your shoulders, being the main person who has to bury your mom, but also how you saw even God working through people to hold you up during that time.
So I always say that during that time, God like gave me a big hug. You know that hug when you're like crying and gasping for air and someone just, you know, covers you and I feel like he did that. To be very honest, the funeral was the least of the things that I had to worry about.
Okay.
In all aspects, really, be it financially and admin wise and planning for the funeral. I actually did not cry as I was planning for the funeral because I'm very hands-on. I am like your admin person. Like I will do things and not mind the weight of the stuff. And worse off, this was my mother's funeral. So the first thing that kicked in, of course, I lost my mother. I didn't cry hysterically. I didn't roll down. I didn't. Obviously, tears were coming out, but I was like, I need to plan for the funeral, you know? And funny enough, I also left my previous job because I was on a contract basis. So, but it was like a perpetual contract that would just be paper. But then at that point in time, it did not come with certain benefits like funeral policy and medical aid, particularly. The money was there to be like, I can go do this on my own, but you know, the hassle of being just. So when I moved to the new job, it was a permanent job. It is a permanent job because I'm still there. And the whole time I kept saying, I'm moving because I need to have a funeral policy and I need to have like it was something that was just at the top of my head. And I was just like 2 months in my job. My funeral policy had just matured. And like had it been like a week earlier or 2 weeks, it would have been a different story. It had just matured when it happened. So everything else in terms of the admin and stuff, that was taken care of by the funeral policy guys. Financially, I had people coming through, like God was just like full. Like people from nowhere was just like, hi, please go and collect money there. Please go and collect money there. And I was like, oh God, you're so cute.
I see you, like I see you. I don't understand what you've just done, but I see you. You're there somewhere. Yeah.
So, and I had my friends, the family that I've built outside my family, like you mentioned, the extra community, the community. They came through for me and in ways I can't even say, like, I do not know how I can even begin to explain what they did for me. They were there from, I didn't even sleep at my place that very night. Nyari and Z and their husband, and Nyari's husband came to take me. They're like, you're not sleeping here. You can't because you're not okay. I was on the first flight back home to Blayo the following day. Everything was catered. Everything was done. Like, I didn't have to worry about the finances. And so, and the way people showed up, I understood what it means to live peaceably with people. It's very important. For what it counts, I mean, I say that the burial date should be as soon as possible. She died on a Sunday. She was buried on a Tuesday, Wednesday. Like, normally people wait for 4 days, 5 days, those things. But for me, it was like very fast and quick, and I was planning everything. And people showed up. Like, it was midweek. I was expecting to see like 20 people, like family plus 20 people. But people from church showed up. People showed up in there because they was like, what do you want? I was like, I wanted to be buried in a Master Guide uniform. And the Master Guides are the ones who carried their coffin. There were so many people at the funeral. I was so shocked. Like, but also that testifies to how much of a good person she was. She lived well with people. And my community really helped me up. It's very important to have people around you. And
Is there a particular reason why you wanted her buried fast or quickly?
I opposed to what tradition is like, where you host people for 3-4 days. That's very tedious. 2 hours not based in Blawa, not based in Blawa so much. So having to then accommodate everyone at the same time and at the same place for a very long time was going to be inconvenient. Also, I do not see the need to wait. Like, you're prolonging the inevitable. She's gone. Let's do it. Let's do what needs to be done. We will take care of the rest once everything is done and sorted. And I'm just a planner. I do plan things, and I like getting things done as soon as I can. So I was like, I'm the like, immediately what kicked into my head was like, I'm the only child. I need to do this. I need to do things right. I didn't want to leave things in the hands of another person to say, so we're going to do this. You do not know the love that I have for her. So if I just leave it, that's the only last respectable thing that I could do for her. So I wanted to do it right. I wanted to do it properly. I wanted to pay my last regards, respects to her. So it was an honor, actually. And I think for this, I really do appreciate my family. Of course, I'm strong-headed and everything, and because someone will be in some traumatic state and everything, maybe they're like, but they really did let me, they really did let me do what I wanted to do for my mother. So I think in hindsight, I really appreciate what they did, because some families would be like, we are the aunts here. Exactly, and they would not. So I think I do appreciate my family for allowing me, to do that for my mother.
You are so strong. I don't know if anyone has told you that, and I don't know if that's something anyone who's going through pain wants to hear. I also don't know, But from sitting here, I think you're incredibly strong. 2 years down the line, right now, how are you doing? I think you're doing exceptionally well. I think she would be so proud. How are you doing? How is the business doing? What is the plan? What is the grand plan in making sure that your name is remembered?
I am doing fine. I'm doing okay. I'm doing quite okay. I think it's only earlier this year where I got to a point where I was like, I am at a better state than I was the last 1.5 years. And that's when I was like, let me start rebuilding my life again. Because once something as life-changing as that happens, look, my whole life was built around my mother. Everything that I was projecting for the future had my mother in the picture, So there was a time I wanted to run away, go to an island and be a dog mom for the rest of my life and not be obligated to do anything, because I'm like, why get married even? Why have kids even? Why have... So I had put everything aside and I was just like, I'm not gonna do this, because now there's also a terrible fear of loss. Because like, I'm going to have
I don't want
kids.
to bring anyone
They
close.
die.
And
What if they die? Oh, I'm going to get married, and what if my husband dies? And it's a pain.
do
Yes.
you kind of feel like, or did you feel like back in the day where, because I have had like a loss in the past where even when you laugh, like you're like, you kind of feel like you don't have permission to be happy or to enjoy, to be happy or to enjoy life, where you feel like by being so happy whilst this terrible thing has happened, it's like I'm disrespecting the memory, or I'm not like, really like giving it the due attention that it deserves. If you ever felt that way, at what point do you think you gave yourself permission to live and thrive?
I actually felt the opposite. Knowing my mother, she would have wanted me to be happy, because we would have these talks, even just before going to school, those 10-minute, 20-minute long life lessons, Johnny, before you go to boarding. She would always say that if anything happens to me, Samantha, I need you to, be able to be one person, So I actually felt like by prolonging, I'm not sure if I should say prolonging, because there's no timeline to grief, but my prolonged grief, the mourning and everything, I felt like if she were here, she would be like, please don't do this. Please talk about this, don't do this. But it's something that I couldn't change. I knew deep down in my heart she would have wanted me to move on, be happy, because girl, we've come this far. You can't just throw away your life. But I was just at the verge of throwing it away, all the way to be like, yo, whatever comes, I don't want anything. I don't want to face this type of loss again. So I might as well just live life and wait for my time to come. So it was quite the opposite for me.
And now you've built a successful business. It was always like growing at that time, but looking at what you've done in the last 2 years, I wonder where you get your strength from. And can you just like talk us through what your business is about, where people can find it, and what the vision is? When you think about it as a brand, where do you want to take it?
Okay, so the business, initially it was called Accessories by SN, and then we changed names to SN Lugs. Business is about selling quality bags and shoes. For really people who like, I'm really targeting people who are comfortable with where they are, people are not trying to be wannabes, where you want to be buying fake Gucci so that people can be like, you're wearing Gucci. But people appreciate quality, people appreciate style, and basically that. The vision for the brand is that, well, it grows in that line. And it expands probably in terms of branches. But for business-wise, for me, this was like my simple baby to see how... Remember, I'm coming from a science background. No one taught me what cost of sales is, cost of goods, cost of, marketing and everything. So for me, it's just been... I've been learning and learning and learning. And I was like, when I venture into like bigger business, I will know, because business principles are the same. So it's a business that's very dear to me because it has taught me everything that I need to know about business. I'm still learning, yes, but the vision is to grow, be bigger, and obviously generate more revenue and everything like that. So now that I have an employee, it's so cute. But I'm like, I'm a whole employer. We're based in Harare, at 3 Fairbairn Drive at Mount Pleasant. So that's all about the business. I love it because it's dear to my heart, and it's one of the things that kept me going. There were days where I could not go to work, and before, remember, I was like an online person, and a message would just pop in, from people, and you're just like, life just goes on. You're like, I want that shit, please deliver it, and you're just like, But at the same time, you're
Yeah.
like, okay, so it kept me going
Yeah.
on dates when I also couldn't do anything. So I think I'm also very grateful for that. That
And you're also on
been
socials,
happening.
on the socials, right?
Yes, it's SN Lux.
Is it SN
SN Lux. Yes.
Okay. Like I said earlier, I think you're doing very well. And when you speak about how you had these conversations with your mom and you knew she would have wanted you to go on and thrive, I think she would be so, so proud of you. Maybe as a closing, if she were here today, what would you say to her? Like, what is the one thing that you would say to her if she could hear you?
Please don't die. I would say, please don't die. It's life without a mother is terrible. It's it's terrible. You know, it's obviously it's cute when people are like, oh, you're strong, you're doing this, you're doing that. But do I have an option?
Yeah.
Do I really have an option? I do not. Like the only way out is by being strong. There are days where I just want to call her and be like, what should I do? But I can't do that because she's not here. There are days where you just see someone with their mother and it's like so cute and they're like, I used to have that privilege before. I do not have it now. It was like taken away from me abruptly. And yeah, I'll tell her not to die. I would tell her not to die, Shane. That's what I would tell her because it's not easy. I will not lie. Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy.
I have a quote here that says, it's a quote here that says, you don't move on after loss, but you must move with. You must shake hands with grief. Welcome her in, for she lives with you now. Pull her a chair at the table and offer her comfort. She is not the monster you first thought her to be. She is love. And she will walk with you now, stay with you now, peacefully, if you let her. And on the days when your anger is high, remember why she came. Remember who she represents. Remember, grief came to you, my friend, because love came first. Love came first. I had like prepared this whole closing that speaks about like how strong you are and how great you're doing. And maybe sometimes we really just don't need to hear that because like you said, do you have a choice? Right? It's either I'm strong or I allow myself to sink until I die. So I think what I'm going to say is that, you know, God's got you. Even when it doesn't make sense, God's got you. Allow people to love you. Sometimes I know it's easy to feel like people have ulterior motives. Why would anyone want to be there for me? But if there's anything that I've learned is to like allow people to love you. This is not to say let every single person in, because there are some people who actually have ulterior motives who want to take advantage of your vulnerability. But when because God is a good God, He will never leave you alone. And so sometimes He sends people to us, and it's easy to like to keep your cards to your chest because you want to protect your heart. Like you said earlier, I don't want to love too much because love means the possibility of losing. But allow people to love you and open up your heart to love, whether it's romantic or it's platonic. Open yourself up to it and experience it. And yeah, man, just keep going. You're really people might not might not say it to you, but I say it once in a while, maybe once in 6 months, where I'm just like, I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, you too.
For still pushing and for still going on, and that is a testimony even to people who've never walked in your shoes. Thank you also for your bravery to come and talk about this and share about this. I'm sure it wasn't that easy. But thank you for taking the time and for being vulnerable and allowing yourself to walk through it. And I hope in some little way it was, I don't know, therapeutic to talk about it.
It was.
But yeah, you're such a bright young lady, and I know the future has amazing things for you. So please just don't give up. Stumble if you must, take a break if you must, but like just don't give up. Don't give up.
Thank you so much. It means a lot. It means a lot. Remember, I think I did mention that I actually wanted to shoot a video of something similar for my mom's second anniversary, for her death anniversary. Don't know how you call that. Well, something happened and I could not. So having this conversation is like a little sign from God to be like, yeah, I need someone out there to hear this, and I hope someone, at least one person who's going to watch this, will find some sort of motivation to move on, or to hold on. Yes, God is there. There's one thing that my sister told me, and just to answer what you were asking about, to say, will we ever know, when you pray to God and he doesn't give us what we've asked for, yet in his word he says, ask and it shall be given. She's told me one thing when something bad had really happened. She said, on this other side of heaven, anything is possible. And that makes so much sense, because in the bigger picture, we're still in this great battle with evil, with the devil, with everything that is anti-God, So sometimes we don't get the things that we ask for because there are bigger battles that are happening that we cannot see. And I always comfort myself to say, how Ellen White puts it, to say, one day when we're in heaven, we're going to look back and look at these things that we cried over, even the death of loved ones, that the joy that we'll be experiencing when we get there will be so much that, this will be very insignificant. And I always think about it, to say, one day I'll laugh about it, to say, I was crying so much for my mother, but we're here and we have the whole of eternity to spend our lives, and we're just going to laugh and say it was something that was very small. Sometimes I just get to think, how we say God knows the end from the beginning. Sometimes I just, in my imagination, I'm like, maybe to him it's like a 1 hour movie. Everything is like a 1 hour movie. And he knows it's only for an hour. Just hold on. We're going to be done. We have forever to laugh about this. No matter how painful it is, I always take comfort in that the pain that I'm feeling right now is nothing compared to the joy that I will experience when all of this is over.
Man, I usually have like a closing something that I say. I do not have anything to say right now. I think you've literally summed everything up. So I'm just going to say to whoever is watching this, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for listening to Samantha's story. And if you are also going through pain and loss and grief, I pray healing, and I pray that God gives you a very big hug and gives you people to do life with. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys again next time. Goodbye.